everyone. How are you doing? Very good. I have 20 minutes to share a lifelong experience with you about customer experience design. I'm an experience designer. It's my job to make sure that businesses do best what their customers want most. I work with retailers, hospitals, all different kinds of businesses where employees and customers come together to create experiences that customers rave about. Let's get started. Apple Computer. How many of you have been to an Apple computer store or even walked by one? 10 years ago, the pundit said Apple wouldn't make it. It didn't have a chance at retail. It knew software and hardware, but it didn't understand anything about retailing. 10 years later, 200 stores later, they've obliterated the competition and become the #1 retailer in the world based on sales per square foot. 3 times more than Tiffany and almost double Best Buy. Everyone believes it's because of the experience that Apple offers, not just because of its hardware and software. From New York to Pudong in China, Apple's created signature experiences starting with landmarks. One of the things they do with their design, this is the first takeaway, is try to find out with your design how you can give people more at a lower cost. Just like Dimas was showing us the hand trick, you can't turn your wrist, but you can turn your hand over. You can use design as a tool, almost as a weapon, to deliver better experiences at lower cost. First case in point, Apple Computer has these really cool landmark properties. Aren't those great? You know how much they pay for those right there? They pay for the air rights. Those of you that are in real estate, they're not paying by the square foot for the signs. They're paying for air rights, which are much less expensive. That's one of the ways they keep their costs down and keep the experience up. What Apple's done so successfully is turn its product experience into a successful retail experience. It's transported what makes computers and software great and easy to use right into the store. They're masters, again, at high-touch, low-cost design. Look how much this store costs to outfit. Those are wood tables, and there's nothing else in the store. There are no racks. There's some shelves on the side made of the same material. Per square foot, it's one of the least expensive stores to equip that you can find. There are plenty of independents that spend more on their stores than Apple does on some of its nicer stores. The one thing that makes Apple so amazing at retail that the rest of this presentation will be based on is this little application right there called the Apple Store app. When you look at it at size, it looks like this. This one thing is the differentiator for Apple Computer, and in my opinion, why it's so successful. What's behind this little button when you press it on your iPhone is the power of the entire store. Apple changed retailing. It didn't change computing. It went to market with a totally different, way out there model that now has been realized with a single button click. You're in charge of the store. The customers make their own reservations for resources. Where else can you go to make an appointment other than for a haircut or surgery where retailers will take care of you, to handle your pre-sales questions, to train you, to give you support, or to help you solve technical problems? What's interesting about that design and makes it work so well for Apple is they've taken out the cost. One of the most overspent areas in retail is manpower. You know, you go into a Home Depot, and there are plenty of orange-vested people when you don't need them. But when you need them, you can't find one. Apple solved that problem, so they don't have manpower shortages where they lose sales or manpower overages where they lose money. Very clever, letting the customers drive. The other thing that they've just introduced is an even higher form of customer service, putting the customer in even more control. If you go into an Apple store anywhere in the world in the last 2 weeks, you'll now see their own products, iPads, serving as hang tags. So instead of putting all the paper and the labels and all that stuff out, there's an iPad just like this next to every single product. So you can click on the iPad to see what you need. But if you get caught, see that little red circle? It says call an associate. You have a question, you press the little button, and somebody comes over to you. Doesn't that feel comfortable? How do you take an experience like that and make it work in your own business? It's one thing to look at the case study and to say, Apple did A and B and C and D, and they came up with this great design that's made them the #1 retailer in the world. Now remember, that's out of category for them. They're also the #1, one of the top, let's say, PC manufacturers, and with this app exchange, they've almost cornered the market on software. So they're doing well in a number of areas. How can you learn from the Apple experience? What did they do first, second, and third? How did they actually make all of that work? Where do you start? Where does innovation happen? How does creativity come about in a way that the entire company can embrace it and get behind it? I'm going to share with you some techniques on how to do that today. Not necessarily the ones that Apple used, but ones that you can use as soon as you want to, starting this evening or tomorrow. Behind that Apple experience that we just described, that many of you have already had yourselves, is all kinds of planning that goes on. There are blueprints and all kinds of things like that that have to be coordinated on the architecture side. There's even a new cloud computing architecture. All of these very complicated things on their own have to come together to create a customer experience that pleases you, one that you'll like so much that you'll rave about to your... Oh, crap. I'm just kidding. We're using a Macintosh. There we go. So how do you start this whole chain of events in order? We've got this domino thing. I'm going to give you 4 categories of tools. Creative problem-solving tools can be used to establish a frame. Let's reframe the question. They can also be used on process. Lots of people that I've spoken with are very interested in what's your creative process? How do you do it? What are the nuts and bolts of getting things done so that I can be more effective in my organization? Best practices, if you will. There's the people side of things as well. It's one thing to change a product or change a process. It's another to change a person. You know, when you change the light switch in your house, doesn't it stay changed? People aren't like that. People tend to switch back sometimes. So you need to have processes that fully engage them where they don't decide later to be a sniper and shoot your ideas down, or even the ones that they created. And finally, outcomes. Some creative processes are fabulous at directing outcomes. You actually need all 4 to pull off something big. And I'd like to share with you a couple of them. The one that I've used with the most success over the years is called a reason for being. I learned the concept from Stephen Heckel, who wrote a book called Adaptive Enterprise. It was all about how big business can work as a system to perform better, to better meet the needs of its customers, and to wrap the resources of an organization around a customer rather than pulling them through what might be a very uncomfortable process or experience for them. A reason for being does all the things that you can read here, but basically it ignites a brand and it gets people passionate. It gives them a reason to wake up in the morning and to say, wow, I love what I do and I do what I love. This is wonderful. Let me keep doing it some more. A reason for being has 3 parts to it. It's one sentence that identifies the outcomes of value that you deliver, who you serve, and how you keep your promises. If you can put those 3 things, and for those of you writing, I will make these slides available on my website this afternoon or tomorrow morning. You can pick them all up, but keep writing if you like. The trick is to get all of this in one sentence. Steve Heckel figured out that if you include these 3 ideas, what do we exist to do, for whom, and how, that you have the beginnings of a systems design. And you can build everything else about your business or about your project or about your idea out of a reason for being. Your day can have a reason for being. Your life, your business, your project, your special project, your initiative, whatever you'd like to call it, it can all have a reason for being. And I encourage you to try this concept because at the very, very beginning, it not only tells people what you're shooting for, it tells people what you will do. It's not a mission statement. It's not a vision. It's a concretized design. It's a framework for getting things done. Underneath the reason for being are a couple of things. One is to truly understand why it is that a customer might buy the outcome that you have to offer. If you're selling tires, for example, the reason you want tires isn't because they're made of a certain vulcanized rubber with so many treads of this and all this technology. It's because you need to go to church or because you need to haul a load from your farm to the market. There's a reason that people buy that's often very different than the reason that we build things or sell things. If you'll dig into that, it'll get you much closer to the customer and everything that you do will line up better. The second thing to understand are what are the outcomes of value that you produce. For example, at the Apple Store, the outcome of value isn't just a computer. You come out, in my opinion, a smarter user. Every encounter at the Apple Store makes you a little bit smarter. It makes you a little bit better at using the computer. When you're answering a trouble ticket, when you're getting help on the phone, when you're going to the website, there are hints and tips and suggestions on all kinds of things related to what you're doing that make you a better user. That's an outcome of value. People don't feel frustrated when they use Macintosh, Apple computers. They know that they're going to work. They're not going to crash like we saw a few minutes ago. And finally, one of the things that we don't often unveil in creative problem solving, and I'm sure there are techniques to do it, I just haven't seen too many, is to understand what it is that somebody doesn't want to have happen. You might want something to be blue, and your range for blue might be here to there, but you definitely don't want red. Asking people, what are your conditions of satisfaction? What shouldn't I do? And putting that into your reason for being makes everything work really well. Here's an example of one for a bill pay company that works in the community bank space. It says, iPay, it's the name of the company, exists to make electronic bill paying quick, easy, and hassle-free. Notice it didn't say to make a profit. It didn't say to become the #1 banking software company in the world. It didn't say anything else vacuous. It made a bold promise. Reasons for being make bold promises. Ideas that succeed are bold promises. The rest of the reason for being explains how you keep it. We do that by consistently delivering the experience everyone raves about. The little text doesn't really matter, but it further defines each of the words so that there is no opportunity for misunderstanding. A reason for being must be, above all else, unambiguous. Okay, think about this. What's Apple's reason for being? I went to look on their website, and all I found after my Google searches was a whole bunch of blogs and questions about why Apple doesn't have a mission statement. I found that pretty interesting. Okay, let's look at the next one. Process. Process is an interesting way to imprint the outcome of an initiative or to create an organization or any kind of a project that will really knock the socks off of your customers.